My name is Josh Meadow. I'm the head of operations for Chacruna Institute. We are a nonprofit dedicated to building bridges between the ceremonial world of psychedelic plant medicines and indigenous culture and the mainstream world of psychedelic science. And we create education and do public events and a lot of other stuff. I'll have some more announcements related to Chacruna at the end, but I want to really bring it back to this event and not say too much. So I'll just say that we chose to do this event following an event we did with Erica, who helped organize the event today. We did an event with her a couple months back with her and Eric Davis and Jules Evans about conspirituality and this intersection of the spiritual new age and psychedelic communities with some of the far right conspiracy theory thinking. And following that was we had been doing a lot of these community forums, more mental, intellectual discussion about a bunch of different things. But we had the idea. I think it was Erica and Bia in conversation had the idea that we really wanted to do something that was a little more embodied, a little more heart-based and body-based, where we could really just be together and feel, and grieve. And there's been so much, and we've been doing so much mental stuff, so much education and articles and these more intellectual events. But we really wanted to just have a space to pause. So I'm going to let Erica say more about that and bring on other speakers. But we have a beautiful lineup of amazing humans here today with a lot of different offerings, and I'm really, really grateful that Chacruna was able to host this. Really grateful to Erica for organizing and to all today's presenters. And so we hope you enjoy it. Please, that's all I'll say for now. And if you stick around at the end, we'll have some more announcements about upcoming stuff at Chacruna. So with that, I'd love to bring on Erica to introduce the event. Hi, Erica.
Hi, Josh. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for hosting. Thank you for being here. Thank you to all of you for showing up. Welcome, welcome. If you feel called, please introduce yourself in the chat. You can put your pronouns, the land that you're on. My name is Erica Morton Magill, and my pronouns are she and her. I'm currently in Taos, New Mexico on Pueblo land. And again, thank you, Bia and the Chacruna Institute, for holding space for us to mourn collectively. Thank you, Josh, for all your help on the back end. Somebody said that they can't see me. Can you hear me? Like Josh said, this is a new platform, so I can see her. Okay, yeah. Great. Glad some of you can see me. So again, thank you. Thanks, Josh, for your help on the back end, which is a little bit tricksy at times. To all of our speakers and participants, and really to all of you. Yes, and yes, you can see and hear me. Thank you. So glad all of you are here. Again, you can feel free to introduce yourselves there in the chat you've all found. And I just think this is a really beautiful opportunity to name our grief, to bathe in it, as Liana, who you'll meet in a little bit, said to me the other day, and maybe begin to transmute it. Sufi poet Rumi famously said, "This being human is a guest house." Being human, I believe, is a practice in loving. And when we lose what we've loved, we grieve. Grieving is praise for what we've loved, says Mayan elder Martin Prechtel. So maybe Rumi would agree that this grieving is a guest house. And we're not alone in our grief, in our home. So I'm honored that we're all here in breath and in community to witness one another in our stories of grief, but also our stories of joy, of banality, of discovery. This grief can be heavy, And I don't know, there's a lot of closeness, there's a lot of tenderness, particularly in light of all that's happened in the US this last week. This grief can be unpredictable. So as we move through tender space together today, I invite you to take care of yourself as you need. Maybe stand up and shake, or get a sip of water, or step outside for air. You might touch yourself, feel skin. The inspiration for this event, like Josh said, came during a conversation on the theme where conspiracy and spirituality meet. And I mentioned that the roots of conspiracy are con, which means together, and spiritus, which means breath or breathing. And that perhaps we're longing to breathe together, to mourn together, to wail together, to sing together, to tell stories, share memories, to use our breath to really witness each other and be witnessed by our kin. Robin Wall Kimmerer says, respiration, the source of energy that lets us farm and dance and speak. The breath of plants gives life to animals, and the breath of animals gives life to plants. My breath is your breath is mine. It's the great poem of give and take, of reciprocity that animates the world. Only when people understand the symbiotic relationships that sustain them can they become people of corn, capable of gratitude and reciprocity. So as we step into this space of reciprocity and mutuality together, I invite you to take a breath. Feeling your heartbeat, noticing its power, its rhythm. Noticing the self-same breath, the cord that connects us through time and space. I'm going to read an excerpt of a poem written by Terry Tempest Williams in September of 2020, just last year as California wildfires were blazing, called A Burning Testament. There is only our love and grief to hold us in the terror of all we are seeing, sensing, denying. We can't touch the source of our despair because we can't touch each other. And so we retreat inside when everything outside is screaming. We are sitting in rooms, watching screens alone, waiting, as if this is a pause instead of a place, the place where we find ourselves now. We cannot breathe. This is our mantra in America now. We cannot breathe because of the smoke. We cannot breathe because of police brutality and too many Black bodies dead on the streets. We cannot breathe because of a virus that has entered our homes. We cannot breathe because we are holding our breath for the people and places we love. I was asked to write an obituary for the land, but I realize I am writing an obituary for us, for the life we have lost and can never return to. And within this burning of Western lands, our innocence and denial is in flames. It is time to grieve and mourn the dead and believe in the power of renewal. If we do not embrace our grief, our sadness will come out sideways in unexpected forms of depression and violence. We must dare to find a proper ceremony to collectively honor the dead. This will be our joy. Let this be a humble tribute, an exaltation, an homage, and an open-hearted eulogy to all we are losing to fire, to floods, to hurricanes and tornadoes, and the invisible virus that has called us all home and brought us to our knees. We are not the only species that lives and loves and breathes on this miraculous planet called Earth. May we remember this and raise a fist full of ash to all the lives lost that it holds. Grief is love. How can we hold this grief without holding each other? To bear witness to this moment of undoing is to find the strength and spiritual will to meet the dark and smoldering landscapes where we live. We can cry. Our tears will fall like rain in the desert and wash off our skins of ash so our pores can breathe, so our bodies can breathe back the lives that we have taken for granted. I will mark my heart with an X made of ash that says, "The power to restore life resides here. The future of our species will be decided here. Not by facts, but by love and loss." So that is called A Burning Testament by Terry Tempest Williams. And today we're going to speak to a lot of varied experiences of grief. We've asked a few folks here to name, hold, and create space for that grief. And then all of you present will have an opportunity to share as well. So thank you for being here, each of you, in breath and community. In honor of all the loss and also the light, I invite you into a collective candle lighting. So if you'd like to light a candle with us, ready your candle or gather a candle and a flame if they're not yet near. We have co-created an altar that some of you contributed to. Thanks to everyone who shared your pictures, stories, poems, and haikus. The losses we've all felt this last year are vast and deep, and each loss that was shared brought me to tears. I also want to acknowledge that not everyone builds altars in the same way. This is just one manifestation. So I'm going to bring up the altar now as we light a candle, and then it will live in our shared altar room. And if at any point you just want to go sit in reflection, you can access that altar space by clicking on Expo. It's on the left-hand menu, and it will be the only booth there. You can use the chat there as well to add people, places, and things that you're sitting with, remembering and honoring. And I'd also like to welcome Glauber to guide us in our candle lighting. In every interaction we've had over the last weeks, Glauber has oozed generosity and kindness, despite the incredible hardships he and his fellow Brazilians have facing. He's also an accomplished researcher, a postdoctoral fellow at the Federal University of Minas Gerais in Belo Horizonte, Brazil, where he also earned a PhD in sociology, a research associate at the Interdisciplinary Group for Psychoactive Studies, and co-founder of the Center of Sociology Studies, Antonio Augusto Pereira Prates. Glauber, if you'd like to come on. I will share my screen. Can you all see that? Yeah. Okay, looks like I can. Hi, Glauber. Yes, we hear you.
Hi. I'm Glauber. I'm calling in from Belo Horizonte, the mountains of Brazil. And I want to say thank you very much, Erica, for this invitation. Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Bia. Thank you all. For me, it's an honor, a great honor to be here with you in this very important and very difficult time. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity and express my solidarity to all the people who are suffering at the moment and who have lost loved ones. I have lost some very loved friends this past few months, and it has been an immense challenge to seek comfort and encouragement to move forward. Here in Brazil, we are experiencing one of the worst moments in the history of our country. More than 300,000 people died of COVID. There is a government genocide against indigenous nations here in Brazil. Black people and poor people are suffering an unprecedented attack. Queer people are being chased, and religious minorities are suffering a lot of prejudice from Christian fundamentalism here in Brazil. So I'm very grateful to be able to share this pain with you. I'm very grateful to know that we are not alone here, that we are going through this moment together. So as an indigenous leader of the Amazon rainforest taught me, as long as there is one more song to be sung, as long as there is a candle lit, there is still hope, there is still love, and the dance of life triumphs and continues. So with gratitude and love, I send good energy from Brazil to all of you, and I invite you to light our candles together, sharing our grief, sharing our love, sharing our trajectories, our life, our memories.
Thank you so much, Glauber.
You, Erica.
Yeah, thank you for being here. So may these lit flames across the world serve as a way to collectively extend our hearts through the airwaves, reaching into each other's screams and homes. And I promised that I would share the altar and then wasn't quite able to do it simultaneously. So I'm going to take a moment and share that altar now and remind you that that altar will live in a shared room that you can access by clicking Expo on the left-hand menu. You'll click that image that appears, and once in the altar room, there's music compiled by my Lost Angels partner, Spiros Antonopoulos. So you'll just need to press play to hear that. And again, you can add your contributions in the chat. But I'll go ahead and just give us a moment and share that altar here. Liana writes, "We are woven in this light of hope together." Spiros says, "Thank you for the light, Glauber, you are not alone." So remembering all those we lost this last year, the mounting and layered individual and collective griefs. Thank you to everyone who contributed to this altar and who's contributing to it in this moment, by being present before it. I'd like to welcome Reema Datta to come on up. Reema and I are neighbors here in New Mexico. She is a friend and a talented teacher, speaker, humanitarian, and author. She founded Yatri Yoga in 2015 to share her family lineage and to offer yoga as a holistic practice with a focus on emotional well-being. Reema first learned yoga and Ayurveda from her parents and grandparents. She carries certificates in Ashtanga yoga, Tibetan yoga, and is a certified Ayurvedic therapist. So happy to have you here, Reema.
Thank you, Erica. Namaste, everybody. It's an honor to be here. And I'm going to share a little bit of mantra and meditation and just help us to get into a space in our bodies and our hearts to start allowing ourselves to feel our feelings today. So let's go ahead and in whatever seat you're sitting, hopefully you're sitting comfortably on a cushion or a chair. And let's take our hands in Jnana Mudra, first finger and thumb touching, just for a few minutes. Let the hands rest on the thighs. And go ahead and close your eyes. We're going to just start to go inwards. As we've all gone through a lot this year, taking these few minutes today to really nourish ourselves. And we'll start with our breath. So taking a moment to just allow the breath to lengthen. The inhales to be as slow as possible, bringing fresh energy into every cell of your body. And let your exhales be as slow and gradual as possible. It's like you're allowing your mind to just rest on your breath. For now, the mind is immersed with the quality of breathing. Long inhales, slow exhales. Let's relax the outer shell of the body. So we'll begin with the hips. So with your eyes closed, take your focus to your hips. And any holding in the hips, see if you can just let the hips release down and root down to the center of the earth. And as the hips root down, allow a little bit of a lift in the heart. Shoulders relaxed. You can let the chin be parallel to the ground. Let the breath continue to be slow and deep. And relax the throat, the jaw, the forehead, even your eyelids. So the more we relax the outer shell of the body, the more we can dig into the feelings that are arising for us today. So with the eyes closed, just scan the whole outer shell of your body. Wherever you might feel a little more tension, take a couple more breaths and relax those areas. So you can feel free to keep your eyes closed. I'm going to just share a blessing, a Sanskrit mantra. The meaning in English is accept us all together. Protect us all together. May our knowledge and our strength always increase. And may we never misunderstand one another. Peace, peace, peace. So you can just listen to the mantra, let the body absorb the sounds. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om. So we say peace for our own bodies and minds, peace for all beings, and peace for the entire universe, the seen and the unseen. Let's keep our eyes closed for another moment or so. And with your eyes closed, I'd like you to just gaze back at the space behind your forehead. And just notice how the space is infinite. No beginning, no end. So in Sanskrit, we call this space Shiva, Shiva consciousness or pure consciousness. And the yogis remind us that, we have all of these emotions and thoughts that arise. And we honor them, we let ourselves feel them. And as we do that, stay aware of this pure consciousness that is infinitely spacious. Spacious in the sense that it's an open, welcoming presence. So that in the moment, whatever is arising within you, you allow it to arise, to be. It's silent in the sense that there's no judgment. There's no labels of good, bad, right, wrong, better, worse. Whatever is arising within you, it just is. It's still in the sense that consciousness is unchanging, undisturbed, undamageable. So whatever arises, you can let your heart be free to express itself freely, knowing that there's a place within you that is undamageable, unchanging. So that Shiva, that pure consciousness, it gives us permission to feel what we feel, to be with whatever is arising. So we do a mantra to Shiva often when we want to sit in the seat of consciousness and really feel our feelings. And this particular mantra I wanted to share with you, it's saying to Shiva, you, the one who is fragrant, the one who nourishes us, please let us be free from our bondage with as much ease and grace as a ripe fruit just frees itself from its stem. So I'll sing this mantra. I'm just going to say it a few times. I think the words are here in the chat. So if you want to join me and sing with me, please feel free. You can listen to a round or two and then just join me. We'll sing a few rounds. And as we sing, imagine yourself sitting in the seat of consciousness, the still, silent, spacious dimension. And from that place, allowing your heart to express itself freely. Om Triyambakam Yajamahe Sugandham Pushtivarnam Divardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityurmukshi Yamamrita Triyambakam Yajamahe Sugandham Pushtivardhanam 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 Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityurmukshi Yamamrita. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Reema. Thank you for bringing us into our bodies, into stillness and peace. Thank you for that permission to feel what we feel. And thank you for your voice washing over us. I'd like to introduce Darron Smith. Darron and I have shared some deep and meaningful conversations about race and pain, psychedelics, and community. He's a physician assistant and faculty member in the Department of Sociology at the University of Memphis. And Dr. Smith is a member of Chacruna's Racial Equity and Access Committee. Darron, are you with us? I think we're waiting for Darron to hop on.
Darron, if you can hear us, you need to click share audio and video for us to bring you on. In the top right.
Maybe I'll bring Glauber back on and Darron can sort out the details, and we will share Glauber's video. Glauber, are you available to come on? There he is. Off and on. Try one more time, Glauber. There we go.
Yes, I'm here, Erica.
Thank you. So thank you again for being here. We have a video that you pre-recorded. I'm wondering if there's anything that you'd like to share about the video.
These are some sacred hymns of Santo Daime religion, the oldest Brazilian ayahuasca religion, which was born the heart of the Amazon rainforest, founded by a black man, grandson of people who were enslaved Brazilian territory. The first song is about Iemanjá, a feminine goddess who is the queen of the sea. So we ask her to take care of our hearts, to wash away all evil, with the waters of the ocean, the endless ocean of peace, of love. This song is also about preto velhos, Black Brazilian people who were enslaved and died by slavery. So in this song, we want to honor pretos velhos, to revere them, and we believe that when we sing, we can connect with their ancestral strength to move on. The second song is a prayer, very important prayer for us, in honor of loved ones who passed away. And we sing this song to reconnect with them, to remember their lives. We thank them for all the good they did for us. And we try to understand that this is not the end, that we are part of nature, that we are part of the universe, and that nature continues. And nature is beautiful, and it is generous to us despite all human problems. So I'm here in Brazil right now. It is almost 5 p.m. But when we sing together, we are connected together. We are all one. So that's the themes of these songs of our Amazon tradition of Brazil. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and play that video now.
Nas profundezas das matas, um ser divino chegou. Beija-flor de amor. Beija-flor de amor. Das águas brancas do mar, ela veio me curar. Lá do alto da montanha, vento forte soprou, limpando o meu céu, transformando mal em ré, limpando o meu céu, transformando mal em ré. Pisando firme no chão, você guiou meu caminho, salvando os pretos velhos que nunca me deixam sozinho, salvando os pretos velhos que nunca me deixam sozinho. Com sua espada de fogo e seu escudo de luz, salve São Miguel, e como
That was so wonderful. Thank you, Glauber. And Glauber's wife. I believe Darron has joined us, so I will bring Darron on. Again, Darron Smith. Happy to have you here.
Whoa, how are
Hi,
you?
welcome.
Nice to see you again, or hear you again at least.
Likewise.
So,
Thank you for being here.
glad to be here. Brother Glauber is quite talented. Talented musician, spiritual leader, professor, researcher. Good job, Brother Glauber. I'd like to meet you one day.
Yeah, so Darron, you and I have talked a lot about the different experiences of grief that are happening right now. And there's this sort of common thread of grief and pain and suffering, but the conditions aren't equal or even, and people are experiencing that pain differently. And I'm wondering if you can speak to that at Cepe.
Yeah, I think suffering is suffering. It's universal. I think oppression, we can all agree that oppressed people experience the pangs of oppression, regardless of the circumstances. When I was listening to you talk, you said a couple of things in the opening reflection that you first said that really caught my attention. You said something to the effect that to be witnessed by our camp. I thought that was along the lines of something that you said earlier, and I thought to myself, wow, that really speaks to what it is I'm trying to get at here. Then the kind sister that did the lettuce and the breathing and the prayer, she said something too. I think she was quoting someone when she said, "Accept us all together. ... Never misunderstand one another." I thought that was really another really important moment as well, because when we talked about this, I think one of the things I said earlier is that one of the things that humans want the most is to be loved and valued by people that they respect, people that they value, they trust, and what it boils down to is we all want affirmation. We all want to be feel like we matter in the world, right? And that our lives matter. And then when they don't matter, or when we're not able to have these experiences, then of course, oftentimes, sadly, chaos ensues. And so it's been that way for communities of color who have been discriminated against for, since the United States, was just a territory. And the circumstances of that trauma and that abuse has been sort of intergenerationally handed down to previous, generations of African Americans and indigenous peoples and others who've suffered the pangs of oppression into their children. So it's interesting because this never really goes away. When trauma happens, it really kind of stays around for a while in preceding generations, particularly if there's no intervention, if there's nothing really done. And most people talk about talk therapy, which is a great intervention. But I think that when people experience trauma or grief can morph into PTSD. Oftentimes when people who are oppressed, who live their lives under the banner of being less than human, right, really does something to the psychology of this idea of one community, right? One love, one community, right? It really flies in the face of that. And when you look at it, when it boils right down to it, the differences that we fetishize over really are less than 1% of the genetic makeup of who we are. I mean, we are so much more alike genetically than we are separate. And what separates us is the superficial, features like skin color, hair texture, and whatnot. But but beneath it all, we humans, we sapiens, are all virtually the same. But that doesn't necessarily mean that our experiences are the same. Particularly when you throw in things like transphobia, LGBTQ discrimination, certainly Asian discrimination, as we've seen the uptick in this lately, and some of the other life circumstances that drive people to do the things that they do, to commit the kind of acts that they commit. It reminds me of a Stacey Barr song. She calls us, "We're all flawed, beautiful people." That's the name of the song. And, I think it really speaks to, the moment, because, if humans don't receive the love and affection and concern and care that we deserve, that we need in order to survive, then, again, the potential for chaos is always looming. So African Americans do experience grief in some respects differently, because for them, the grief often is mired in race. Race is often a part of that grief. The grief of marginalization, the grief of being left out and left behind, the grief of always trying to fit in and trying to matter in a society that's been largely conditioned that, that people of color don't matter, often in talk or in laws or in policies and what have you. And so this history is very deep and very, very long. So these, people respond to marginalization in that they form these pain bodies. Eckhart Tolle talks about this in his work, and essentially this conflict with the ego, right? The ego says I'm supposed to be this, and what this is what society says you need to be. And so we create these personas around what we are taught we should be. And oftentimes we disidentify with these experiences, right? We put so much emphasis in these experiences, and these experiences come to identify us, and we are those experiences. So that when situations don't go our way, then of course the ego is let down, particularly if one is shamed, and oftentimes within these oppressive states and situations where grief is such a and first I want to sort of stop for a second and go back to what you said earlier, Erica, that grief is a normal part of the human condition. I mean, you just can't, we can't get around it. It's a normal part of our condition, human experience. But what we can do is learn to talk about grief, learn to reflect on grief. And the more we understand the circumstances that provided that where the grief occurred, right, it tends to make things a little bit easier in terms of understanding sort of the impulses of why people do what they do. Now, if we're looking at grief solely through the prism of individualism, oftentimes what members of the dominant group often do, right, because of this idea that we're all unique and special humans, and we are in our own way, but we're special and unique within a larger group of other humans, right, that also matter. And when the forces that bear upon populations that deny people the opportunity to express their truth and to be who they are meant to be, ontologically speaking, in the world, right? When those forces are converge and oppress those who all they want is equality, then I think that that deepens the mire. I think it underscores the depth of the suffering and the depth of the grief that people experience. And I think we can see some of these senseless acts of discrimination, for instance, that we've seen, or of course everybody knows about the recent Atlanta shooting, and the current law enforcement is reluctant to say that this is a hate crime. But you can say what you will, when you have 6 Asians targeted in a cluster of individuals who were unfortunately killed. What do you call that? I mean, I don't know what you call that. So I think we need to be courageous enough to call a spade, and to be able to go there, to be able to confront the things that vex us and the things that cause us suffering. Suffering is another part of the human condition, right? So I think our part in it is to learn to look at suffering differently, learn to conceptualize it differently, perhaps not through a Western lens. I mean, that's not been very helpful, I think, generationally. Perhaps we bring in Eastern philosophy, or we bring in other schools of thought. and other practices that could help us as a society essentially learn to be human, and to learn to recognize that we are here because we all work together. Our ancestors worked together to get to this point in our evolutionary history, if you will. And so, if we can put, this is the way I look at it, if we can put folks on the moon, if we can build electric cars, right, and rockets that land back on, the tarmac as they take, we can't deal with poverty, oppression, global suffering. Clearly, sapiens, we have the capability of doing that. But oftentimes it boils down to the political will of the leaders that we elect and those that we choose to lead us and to serve us and to be voice for us, in questions of common decency. So race is certainly a major factor in the grief-producing processes of Western society and the way in which Europeans and European Americans have gone about their business of being conquerors, right, have left generations of scarred people, including other white people as well. So white people don't get to walk away from this either, right? And so, to me, it should give us a pause for one, and also redouble our efforts to work together, to work across difference, to find common ground, and to recognize that we all have just one mama. Or two mamas. The first mama is Lucy. She's about 3 foot tall. She's in Africa. We all share her same DNA, mtDNA. That's what we share in common. And the differences that we see in each other are nothing more than genetic drift, where our ancestors eventually, when they left Africa, settled. And the rest is history, as they say. So we can do much better than what we have been. And we need to take personal responsibility for it, because we're not getting any direction from Washington necessarily on this, or even the local leadership of people who we elect. Maybe we find it in our clergy. Maybe we find it through spiritual practice or religious practices. Maybe we find it there. But the point being that we have to, in order to be able to unlearn and to be able to better process grief, we have to essentially reverse course and turn toward grief, walk back toward it, and to find ways to allow those experiences, as painful as they may be, to speak us, so that the hope is that we emerge better people. And one of the ways that we do this, I believe, is through psychedelics. I think psychedelics has a huge role to play in this, in that it gets us there a little quicker than contemplative practice, although I'm a huge fan of contemplative practice. But I think psychedelics enables us to get to the heart of essentially melting the ego away, so that we can be malleable, so that we can be teachable, and so that we can learn those deeper lessons that we haven't, or that we're having trouble as a society exercising as a group. Not to say that individuals don't do well, but as a group, we have some struggles, and hopefully we can do better.
Thank you so much, Darron. I so appreciate your words and your wisdom, and thank you for being here. I really honor that you said we sort of need to name it to heal it. Those weren't your words exactly, but we sort of have to turn towards it, right? We have to name these inequities. We have to name the places that we come from, so that we can start to collectively move forward together. So again, I just think coming together in this space where there's so many different experiences, so many different ways of expression and contemplation or change, it's a really beautiful thing to witness and be a part of. So thank you. I appreciate you. And Grace Cepe is going to join us next. She's part of the Chacruna Chronicles editorial team and serves as the communications associate for MAPS. I want to express my solidarity with Grace and the Asian community in America, always, and particularly in light of last week's Atlanta shooting. Grace is going to be creating space for grief in the Asian community.
Hi, Erica.
Hi, Grace. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. And greetings, family. Thank you, Brother Darron, for all of your wise wisdom and for acknowledging the violence that's happening in the Asian American community today, and for being an example of what Asian and Black solidarity will look like. And thank you, everyone, for attending this event to mourn the lives over the past year. I know there's a lot to mourn for, and I have a lot of love for you all. As mentioned, my name is Grace Cepe. I'm a second-generation Filipino-American woman. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm calling from the ancestral lands of the Amamutsin tribal band, specifically the Awaswa-speaking Yupi tribe, otherwise known as Santa Cruz, California. As I speak here today, I'm representing myself and the racial and gender existence that I was born into. I'm honored to have this opportunity to create space and be an example of the grief, anger, and pain that is present in the Asian American community today. As you can tell by my demeanor and my energy, I'm very deep in this grief right now. I've been fighting for racial justice and social justice for the past few years in my young career, and I'm slowly learning how to pace myself, how to take care of myself so I can continue doing this fight. I'm grateful to Chacruna Institute and Erica and all the other presenters who use their creativity and healing expertise to support all of our collective mourning today as well. And I'd like to explicitly express my deep gratitude to Bia Labache for her leadership, her mentorship, and friendship that encouraged me to have the courage to speak today. So as Brother Darron mentioned last Tuesday, and as we all know, there was a gun shooting, a mass shooting that happened in Atlanta, Georgia last week. This man, he traveled to 2 massage parlors and killed 8 people, 6 of whom were Asian women. When the Atlanta police explained the assailant's motives, they denied that it was a racially motivated attack, that he was trying to get rid of his sexual addiction, and the death of these women is because he had a bad day. I'm not surprised that the police coddled the assailant, but I'm sick and furious that Asian American women continue to be scapegoated as reasons for the frustrations and failings of white men. When I first heard about the news in Atlanta, I was horrified and angry about the tragedy, but I'm not surprised that it happened. I'm not surprised because I have experience and I've been refining my expertise on the functions of race, gender, and the amorphous structures of power that we live in, and because I pay attention to the current social issues in my country. Since the global pandemic began, individual and systemic acts of violence against Asian Americans have exacerbated, and anybody who was paying attention could see that this tragedy in Atlanta was coming. I, like everybody in this world, have felt grief and pain throughout the past year. Specifically for the past week, though, my mind, body, and soul is processing this trauma, and I know I'm not the only one. I haven't been able to sleep. I feel disconnected and numb from my physical and emotional body, though I know I'm in pain. I can't stop thinking about the lives that have been stolen and the suffering that their families must be experiencing. I'm fearful for my own family, my elders, and my own safety in this world as anti-Asian violence is exacerbated around the United States. I'm frustrated that it took a horrible and preventable tragedy of 6 Asian women dying for people to finally pay attention to the pain, trauma, and fear that has increased in the Asian community in the past year. And I'm incredibly nervous about the increased policing that government representatives are advocating for because they believe that the police will effectively prevent anti-Asian violence, though BIPOC community organizers know that this will increase threat and danger to Black and Brown lives. As I grieve, I've sought out community healing circles specifically for Asian Americans, and I've shared and borne witness to the sadness, the loneliness, fear, pain, and righteous anger that my fellow brothers and sisters are experiencing right now. And I also want to take this time to acknowledge my biracial Blasian brothers and sisters who are experiencing the pains of injustice of the past year from both Black and Asian identities. This past Sunday, I went to a Stop Asian Hate rally in San Jose, California, to protest against the violence and injustice that our people are experiencing today. While I was in the crowd, masked up, and observed the people around me, I saw how this violence has affected all generations, all genders, all people. And at this moment, I remembered Dr. Cornel West when he says that justice is what love looks like in public. Fighting for justice is fighting for everybody's right to life, dignity, and respect. times like these are stark reminders of why I do the work of an activist, why I continue to educate myself so I can be an effective advocate for the rights of people of color, women, trans women, marginalized groups, disenfranchised, invisibilized groups, for them to live a life with dignity and respect as fellow human beings. I practice intersectional solidarity in every realm of my life because there are many ways to be an activist. And I choose to channel this pain that I feel into something much larger than myself. I have empathy and compassion for those who are suffering from a world that is not always kind or fair. And I continue to have a deep love for humanity and life itself. I listen to my psychedelic experiences of our unity and interconnectedness to each other and the universe. And I understand that the work of collective liberation needs the hands, hearts, and minds of all humans, because none of us are free until we are all free. While we grieve, it can be easy to choose to fall into despair and learned helplessness. And during these times of tragedy, I choose to cope by surrounding myself with humor, soulful music, mostly R&B and blues, and nature. Grief can express itself as heaviness in our chest, and it can leave us feeling breathless. Remember to breathe, family. Find other opportunities to laugh, whether it be by laughing with a friend, by scrolling through Instagram and only paying attention to the memes that come up, watching a funny movie or TV show, or watching a stand-up comedian. I personally find that wisdom comes from weird places. Though a majority of the values I integrate in my life come from the matriarchal elders of my family, Asian teachers, Black revolutionaries, Indigenous women and wisdom keepers, and Latinx community organizers, I find a lot of wisdom come from stand-up comedians as well. Humor is an act of resilience, a form of fortitude against the pit of despair and grief that comes with the human condition. We must remember that our fight for justice is rooted in a deep agape love. And although pain comes with love, it also necessitates kindness, pleasure, and humor in its expression to our fellow human beings. And although I wish I could name all of the names that have been affected throughout the past year, I'd like to explicitly mention that for these people to rest in power, Delana Ashley Yan, Paul Andre Michels, Xiao Ji Tan, Dao Yu Feng, Soon Chung Park, Hyun Jung Grant, Soon Cha Kim, Yong Yu, Visha Ratanapakdi, and Angelo Quinto. And thank you all for listening, for being with me in community as I grieve. And if you are interested in getting involved in protesting to stop Asian hate, there is going to be a rally in San Francisco at 12 p.m. And I believe they're all going to be gathering at Union Park or Union Square. Yeah. So thank you all. And I hope you all move through your grief in a good way.
Thank you, Grace. I felt myself, as I'm sure many of you did, hear so many points during your conversation, Grace, with either hands on heart or fist pumping with you. And I see you, and I see your grief, and I see your pain. And thank you for your tenderness, your openness. The world is not always kind. And so I'm glad that we can lean on each other in these moments for support. Perhaps we can drop that protest you mentioned into the chat so folks can participate if they find themselves in San Francisco. Thank you again, Grace. That was so beautiful. I'd like to introduce Wells Jones. Wells, are you here in the house? Wells is a dear and talented friend. He's a noise artist who's played with the likes of Sun Ra. He's a plain-clothed sadhu who shares wisdom deep and wide. Thank you for being here, Wells. If you're in the room, can you press share audio, please? Okay, we will wait for Wells. And I will try for Liana Liana, are you there? Liana Sananda Gillooly is a trained deaf midwife, Vipassana meditator, and immersive artist. She's a lifelong advocate for social justice, drug policy reform, ending war, and environmental protection. She's incredibly talented, thoughtful, and I'm honored she's here with us today. Liana, are you in the room?
I think there's some issues with folks not being in the backstage, not able to see the share video link.
Okay, gotcha.
I just re-messaged the backstage link to Wells and Liana. Hopefully they should come in a moment.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you all for your patience. You know, I think it's just such an honor to be able to sit here and witness each other. So thank you again, in all the tenderness and all of the technological ups and downs. Just being able to hold space together, tender heart space. Perhaps what I'll do is bring Claudia on, Claudia and Tonya. Since you're both here, I'll introduce you folks.
Can you hear me?
She's introducing us.
She's introducing us.
Yes, we hear you. Hi, welcome.
Yeah, you're on.
Hello. We're on.
So hi, welcome.
Let me check the sound.
Just give us.
While you guys are sound checking, I'm just going to introduce you. Claudia,
said you don't notice that aquí.
we can hear you, Claudia, so I'm just going to mute you so I can introduce you, and you can make as much noise as you need to test. Claudia is a Peruvian musician, singer, songwriter, family therapist, researcher, educator. She specializes in the art of healing trauma, trauma resolution, cultural identity, and decolonization of healing. She's trained in drama therapy, expressive arts therapy, somatic experiencing, and trauma-informed care. She also has extensive studies in indigenous ways of healing from her native Aymara and Quechua lineages. Tonya Abernathy has been a singer and musician her whole life. She, in her words, has the ability to make walls and bodies sing and attune to the vibration of love and joy, and I can't wait to experience that all together. Tonya is always exploring ways to make medicine with sound, both vocally and vibrationally. She's also a death doula and has been committed to studying and practicing for many years the art of death and dying. And I'll turn it over to both of you to say a few words about yourself if you'd like.
Hi, that whole part just cut out, but I think you were inviting me to say something.
I was actually, so hello, we've had a few technical difficulties. So I just introduced Claudia and Tonya. And yeah, so Liana, since you're here, we're just going to kind of roll with the punches, everyone. Thanks again. So I think what we'll do is, Liana, since you're here, I'll have you introduce, actually, Claudia and Tonya, let's have you introduce yourselves. Say hello before we play. Oh, I can't, unfortunately, unmute you. So one of you has to come up and unmute. I'm so sorry. Hi, we can hear you. So Claudia, Tonya, if there's anything else you'd like?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Wonderful, wonderful. Erica, thank you so much for the invitation. It is an honor to be here with everybody. And in this day, to bring our hearts together and our attention together to grieving and be in this ceremony and this ritual together. This is an ancient ritual in all cultures that have walked upon the earth. And it is an honor to be together now in these days with this technology in these creative ways, come together, bring our hearts together because we all need it. It's been a difficult year. And what an important thing to come together and bring this pain to the center and together help each other transmute it, transform it, and recover from it the resiliency we need to continue on in the best possible way, sharing all that we have so we can stand strong together. This is a time to be together. And thank you so much for all the artists here, all the speakers here. It is an honor to join forces with all of you. We need all hands on deck. This is the time. And we'll be offering some music today and inviting people to transmute their pain with sound and send it deeply into the earth and to the stars. And this is my great friend, Tonya. You want to introduce yourself?
Hello, thank you so much for inviting me into this beautiful circle of grief and love and resilience. I agree, it's been such a challenging year, and I always seek the gift in everything, and I believe that there can only be great gifts in fighting our grief and in fighting death and dying, to sit with us as part of our life cycle for our overall wellness, for us to truly live joyfully, for us to humanize one another and find our own empathy and compassion for one another.
Thank you both so much. I'm so honored you're here. And Liana, is there anything else that you'd like to share about yourself? And then I'll invite you to take us into a little sit.
Thank you so much. This space that's being cultivated today is really impacting me. I'm feeling very tender, especially after my colleague Grace's share. I feel very grateful that I get to work with such wonderful people as Grace and Pia Labache, who want to extend so much gratitude for, and you, Erica, and everyone who is involved in cultivating this space. This is truly an experiment, right? We are practicing, we are learning how to be in the ceremony and the ritual of grief together, especially since we have been deprived of all of our normal methods of physically being with one another to honor these great passages that have occurred. My name is Liana Sananda Gillooly. I'm calling here today from Pocatuck land, which was part of the Korchog Nation. I'm in my hometown, in the home I grew up in Orient, New York. And I just really feel honored to be able to participate in this community processing that we get to do together. And today I'd like to take us on a short journey, a bit of a walk together, if you will, through our grief. And I think there's so much to be said about naming our grief. And that's going to be part of our practice today. And I want to acknowledge that this is always been a communal process, that grieving is a social experience. And so I, once again, really just appreciate this space that we are exploring. And I want to acknowledge that everybody's process is different. And so if at any point this exercise becomes too much for you or overwhelming or isn't just quite resonating or sitting with you, I invite you to take care of yourself and to do some of the things that Erica mentioned at the beginning. Maybe step outside for a breath of air, drink some water, or just sit with the love that you have in your heart. As we think about all that we've lost. Love is grief with no place to go. And so it's a very powerful force that we are working with. When we are grieving, we are loving. And it's important for us to remember that. And this journey is going to ask of you to be courageous and to be present with and embrace the grief that you might be experiencing. I think so much about our culture and our society likes to assign a negative connotation with grief and the grieving process. But grief is also a portal to help us feel more alive and more full. It is a rich experience. And so I'd like to see if we can expand our concepts around the fact at the Zendo Project, we say difficult is not the same as bad. And so no matter how challenging this might be, this is part of how we get to expand and experience the full breadth of what it means to be a feeling, living, breathing human on this planet. To begin, I'd like to share a passage from Adrienne Marie Brown's Emergent Strategy. And at any point as well, I welcome you to close your eyes and just kind of drop into this experience. Remember, you are water. Of course you leave salt trails. Of course you are crying. Flow. P.S. If there happens to be a multitude of griefs upon you, individual and collective, or fast and slow, or small and large, add equal parts of these considerations, that the broken heart can cover more territory, that perhaps love can only be as large as grief demands, that grief is the growing up of the heart that bursts boundaries like an old skin or a finished life, that grief is gratitude, that water seeks scale, that even your tears seek the recognition of community, that the heart is a front line and the fight is to feel in a world of distraction, that death might be the only freedom, that your grief is a worthwhile use of your time, that your body will only feel as much as it is able to, that the ones you grieve might be grieving you, that the sacred comes from the limitations, and that you are excellent at loving. I'd like to start our process today by calling upon the biggest of our griefs, the ones that we have lost from their fleshly form in this past year. There's been such an immense loss of life. And whether or not you have personally lost someone, there is a pall of the presence of death that seems to be lurking everywhere. The possibility of death is ripe in our psyches as we must grapple with our own mortality, even in the most basic things we do in this life. And if you have lost a person in this past year, whether from this destructive and life-taking virus or the cascading impacts of lockdown that have caused a huge increase in mental suffering, or from coping mechanisms that have gone awry, or from another disease, or violence from authorities, institutionalized violence, from racism, from trauma, and from fear. Whether it was an accident or from a life simply becoming complete and releasing from this physical form. If you have someone that you are placing on the altar today, call into your attention their physical forms as they were. For me this year, I've placed 6 people on my altar, and for others, it might be the same. So for this moment, just be with them or one of them, whatever comes up for you. See if you can smell the unique scent of their bodies, if you can hear the tenor of their voice, the way that they spoke your name, the preciousness of their laughter. Recall the feeling of being held and embraced by your loved one. Feel their skin pressed against yours, the precise way that they hugged you, the way that they carried you. And they carried a part of your life and your light within them. The memories that are held between 2 people when one of them leaves this earth. We lose part of our own life and our own memories when the holder of our memories that we shared is lost. And it is okay to grieve the pieces of your own self that the person you have held. Let us sit with the spirit of our beloveds. And at this time, I invite you to speak their name out loud. Ask them by name to come and sit with you now. Invite them in to be your champion from the other side. Invite them in to be your ancestor, to protect you and to guide you as you move forward in this life. I welcome you to speak to them out loud now. Is there anything that you have left unsaid? Is there anything between your souls that needs mending, that seeks closure? Is there anything that you would like to share with them now in this moment? Perhaps it is something that you are celebrating, a personal accomplishment or an exciting new opportunity. Perhaps you can simply ask them to just be present with you as you sit in the sorrow. Even if the sorrows that you are sitting with in this moment might not have anything to do with them, invite them to be present with you. Anything that needs sharing or expressing in this moment, you are invited to express out loud. For so many of us, the event of such extraordinary loss of life, there is this other loss whose magnitude is hard to measure. And it is this loss of being able to grieve communally. This sacred practice of coming together to honor life has been taken from us or reduced to virtual experiences that, while they're often touching and poignant and beautiful, they're missing something vital. They're missing the human touch. They're missing what it is to look into a person's eyes, unmediated, to receive a glance from someone across the room and recognize that their pain is your pain, and that the pain that you are feeling is being collectively experienced together. Acknowledge the candle that you have lit and know that you are not alone, that right now we are connected in this light together, and we are holding one another in our grief and in our sorrow. We have lost human touch, the chemical reactions in our body, like oxytocin that it generates, have been deprived from so many of us, and we don't know how this will cost us in the long term. We have lost face-to-face interactions with our family and our friends, and even with strangers. We have lost seeing strangers smile as we pass them along the street, and experience the sadness of actively avoiding interactions with people, of crossing the street to the other side. Our grandmothers and grandfathers, our mothers and our fathers and sisters and brothers and nieces and cousins, and so many of our beloveds that are here incarnate with us. They've experienced milestones in their lives, birthdays, marriages, children being born. There are rites of passages that become the strings of memories that we mark our lives with. And we have missed this precious time together and become acutely aware of the knowledge that our time is finite and so very precious. The ease that we once had in being around one another has been replaced with fear and even terror associated with being around people. Where once we felt nourished, we now feel threatened. And there are so many burdens that this virus and our social circumstances have put into our minds. The cognitive load of the reality that we are existing in, it is heavy. It is so heavy to consider how unsafe and uncertain it can feel to be in this life. There is the extraordinary grief of generations of trauma that have been caused and the multitudes of horrors that humans have inflicted upon one another, generation after generation. And it begs this question, when will it stop? Will our children's children be fighting alongside our brothers and sisters as we fight for justice? Will this continue generation after generation? And when we think about our planet and the immensity of the ecocidal destruction that is perpetually happening in the name of profit and greed and extraction and taking, the children that are growing up today are experiencing new forms of depression with the knowledge that the earth that they were promised to them is not going to be there for them. There is so much sadness to be felt. My stepfather would say when I was sad, go take a bath in it. And I think that at this time and in this moment that we're in, it is important to feel the load, to feel the bigness, the magnitude, the immensity of the grief that is being experienced on this planet in this time by ourselves, by people we love, and by people we will never meet. To feel this fully is a human thing. And may we remember that we are bound by our humanity. Take a few very slow and deep breaths. Feel the waves of the sadness that we carry. Feel where it shows up in your body. And now start to move it through your system. Recognize that you are a vessel that is vast and that you can hold this, and that you are also have permission to let go of the grief once it is fully experienced. Thank you for taking this moment to be present with what is inside of us. I'd like to invite our musicians, Claudia and Tonya, to help us integrate this experience through their musical offerings and gifts. And while they're doing that, I'd like for each of you just to continue to sit with what is present and what is arising within you. And after some music and some integration, we'd like to invite you to share what's come up for you and what is present for you. And we will share back to you at the close of the music. Thank you.
Thank you. And Claudia and Tonya, if you could please turn your mic on. I don't know if Otto is there with you, if you can get a little support. To turn on your mic. Thank you.
She's calling your name. The earth, she's waiting. What are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? La tierra te está llamando y ella no puede más esperar. Te pide que te levantes, no esperes más, no esperes más. Open your eyes, take a look inside. Open your heart. What are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? We've been placed on this earth, and now is the time. Can you feel the ground and let it through you cry? The earth, she's calling. She's calling your name. The earth, she's waiting. What are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? La tierra te está llamando y ella no puede más esperar. Te pide que te levantes, no esperes más, no esperes más. Open your eyes, take a look around. Open your hands. What are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? What are we waiting for? What are we waiting for?
Thank you both. Thank you, Liana. Thank you, Tonya, Claudia. Liana, are you still there? Inviting you up to continue facilitating. And Claudia and Tonya, we're going to keep you on as well. We continue to share a little bit of soundscapes as folks continue to integrate and process and perhaps share.
Thank you so much for that beautiful music. It really just, wow, yeah, I'm still kind of so tender and in my process around it. And yeah, if anyone has anything that they would like to share, or even offering a name of a beloved that you would like for us to speak into the space, we invite you to do so in the chat, and we'd be happy to reflect back anything that might like to be shared.
Oliver Maravi. Thank you, Leila. Honoring you, seeing you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Georgia, for sharing with us about the loss of your mother, Hilde. Thank you, Francis, for sharing your friend, Megan Richards.
Thank you, Grace, for calling in Breonna Taylor, Elijah McClain, George Floyd.
Thank you, Ellis, for calling in Bob K into our space today.
Karina, thank you for sharing that one of the Chacruna's designers had lost Mario's father, Mario Luna.
Thank you, Ellis, for sharing Jennifer Kane with us today. And Kim says, please teach me what you have learned about grief from the other side. Grandfathers Jim and Harvey.
Reema Datta, Win Paris, calling in, honoring.
So like to honor the 10 lives that we lost yesterday in Boulder, including members of our extended community and family. Really feeling the weight, the heaviness that is present with the second mass shooting in our country in less than 1 week.
And Liana, thank you for reminding us that this is a practice, that this is an experiment in loving together and honoring together. And so thank you all for practicing. Thank you for experimenting. Thank you for being here in this imperfect platform, imperfect way of connecting, but really beautiful and meaningful. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for calling in all the folks that are with us, that we're honoring.
Thank you so much for this space, and I feel just very moved. I see one more remembering coming through for Dorothy and Norbert Simmons, who are Edwin's mom and dad, calling in Dorothy and Norbert with us. And something that Ram Dass is famous for saying is that we are all just walking each other home. And I really appreciate this practice, this experimentation that we are able to do today with with each other. Thank you so much.
Thank you. These bells are giving me chills. It's such a beautiful thing to feel each other, to hear each other across the airwaves. Also, Karina honoring the 10 daily women who are victims of femicide in Mexico. Being with that. Facing the grief, as Darron said. Honoring all my ancestors, says Helen. Feeling them here with us. Thank you. Leila, honoring Lenore Symes. I'm gonna step off stage and let Claudia and Tonya take us away. A few more moments, just sitting with it, sitting with each other. Thank you. Thank you again. Thank you. What a blessing to be here with all of you, feeling washed over with the sounds, the love, the loss. Thank you. I'm going to bring Wells on to continue the soundscapes for us. I introduced Wells a little bit ago. Hi, Wells. Welcome.
Hi.
Feel free to introduce yourself with anything you'd like to share. Wells is a dear friend.
Well, first, I'd like to send a little sage to everyone. Okay. So, I am a musician, an artist. I'd like to thank my ancestors, thank your ancestors. I'd like to name a few that have passed, as well as a few teachers and dear friends of mine. So, and influences. Pharaoh Sanders, Sun Ra, Dr. Maki Ordelli, Dr. Jorge Gonzalez, Ramana Maharshi, Ram Dass, Daniel Castro, Terrence McKenna, Edwin Dudley Simmons and Jill Simmons, and James Emanuel. So I'm really honored to be here to witness all this beautiful love. And I kind of scribbled a few things that I want to say. One thing I want to address is the Black Lives Matter. And the times are so ridiculous that that has to be promoted. But I want you to know and I'm speaking for brown-skinned people, we know that it's ridiculous, okay? We all matter. However, that's the button that has been pushed right now. It reminds me of when I was a kid, and there was a crayon, I don't know what the company was, but it's the crayon company. And in the crayon box, there were all these different crayons. And one crayon in the box was called Flesh, right? And that was a kind of a very, very light, but wasn't quite white, but it was a very light color. Yeah. Okay. The reality is it's a box full of crayons. Okay. So, of course, that's racist. But the point I'm trying to make here is that we all have color. Okay. That's important to know. Okay. We're all God's children. Okay. Some of us act up, some of us don't. But that's the reality. The other thing is that we are all suffering a great deal of grief. Grief for the world, grief for our loved ones, grief for all the people who have lost. Okay? These are extraordinary times. For me, having been, an explorer in the Amazon, and having studied various medicines, it's still a very, 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 very deep time. Okay? And what came to me while I was listening to this, everyone, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful people, is that the possible is no longer adequate. So we have to bring in the impossible. The possible isn't going to get us there. The impossible can be approached through the stillness of the heart. And when we bring that's the invitation for the impossible to present itself in our possible world, you know? So, strange times. So the people that we lost are ourselves. So we must remember the ancestors, right? To bless the ancestors is to acknowledge our own immortality. To bless the ancestors is to acknowledge our own immortality. So we can't forget that. We can't, in these extraordinary times, it's forcing us so deeply in that it overflows out. You know? So this whole thing wasn't possible. And now it's possible. And the brother from Brazil, all of you, from all different parts of the globe here have come together via this platform that Erica and Josh were able to put together and bring together with their love, basically, is extraordinary. It's extraordinary. So I'm going to play a little something. And in Brazil, here we are. We're in the house. Okay.
Thank you, Wells.
Thank you.
Such a beautiful, beautiful offering. Thank you for your share, your words, and your music. I just tried to bring Claudia and Tonya back on, but couldn't quite get them on. So I will ask you guys to share again and come back on. Okay, they have one more song for us.
Can you still see me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can see and hear you. It's all you. The stage is yours.
Beautiful, thank you. This is a song inspired by the Andes in South America, sending so much love there. And it speaks about the healing energy that runs through the Cordillera de los Andes, the mountains. This healing energy then also runs in our spine, in all of our spines.
curando va, cura curando, cura curando, cura curando va, cura curando, cura curando, cura curando va, cura curando, cura curando, cura curando va. Abuelita que todo lo sabe, abuelita que todo lo ve, abre los caminos, levanta nuestra gente. Cura curando, cura curando, cura curando va, cura curando, cura curando, cura curando va, cura curando, cura curando, cura curando va, cura curando, cura curando, cura curando va. Abuelita que todo lo sabe, abuelita que todo lo ve, abre los caminos, levanta nuestra gente. Cura curando, cura curando, cura curando va, 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 cura curando, cura curando, cura curando va. Cura curando, cura curando, cura curando va, cura curando, cura curando, cura curando va.
Curando vamos.
Thank you.
Muchas gracias. Muchas. Aliliancho. Aliliancho.
Thank you. Your music is such a blessing, such a gift. So I'm going to invite Reema back on to close us out of our bring us back to our bodies. I'm still a little bit in this space of magic and music. What a beautiful, beautiful gathering. Thank you so much, all of you, for being here. I know that some folks have a hard stop at 2 p.m. So I just want to honor that and let you all know that I will be sharing participants' information in the chat at the end. So don't worry, we will be sharing that with everyone. Reema, thank you so much for being here, bringing us back to our bodies as we come to a close of our time today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Erica. Thank you. I had no idea I'd be surrounded by so many beautiful sisters and brothers today. So thank you so much for having me. I want to just carry on with what Wells Jones was so beautifully saying about, being extraordinary and going beyond what is normal. I forget your exact words, but just it made me reflect that this reminder that the miracles are not outside of us, but that we we can be the miracles, and that we have so much light within us, and we can really shine brighter than we ever have before through all of these challenges. The yoga scriptures remind us again and again that we have the light of 1,000 suns within us, and it sounds like so extraordinary and so miraculous, but it's who we are. And I want to close with the mantra that reminds us of our light and that helps bring that light to the surface. And just a brief teaching from the yoga scriptures to close out together. You know, there's the Bhagavad Gita, which a lot of you might know of this yoga scripture. It kind of has all the juiciest teachings in it. And there's one point in the Gita where these warriors are going out to the field, and a lot of them are feeling kind of scared, you know. And one of the warriors goes to the mother of some of these warriors and asks, "Do you have something to say to your kids who are about to go into war?" And everyone thought that the mother would say something like, "Oh, please be careful, please come home safe," you know. But she actually, her message to her children was, "You were born for this fight. Like you spent your whole life preparing for this fight. So go with strength and courage and face these challenges that you're about to face." And I read that in the midst of the pandemic, and it was a beautiful reminder, because often in the pandemic I was feeling like this, like I don't want to face all this. It's like it's too much. It's, you know, all this fighting for justice and feeling our pain. It can be exhausting and it can be a lot. And I think it's really important for us to rest, to give ourselves permission to rest and pause between all of what we're doing. And while we do, just to let ourselves remember that we were born for this, you know. And so we'll close with this mantra that helps us to touch that infinite light within us and bring it to the surface. So this is the Gayatri mantra. It's considered the most powerful mantra of all the mantras. So I'll sing a couple rounds. Feel free to join me. If you know this, feel free to join me. Om Bhur Bhuva Svaha Tat Savitur Vareniyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhur Bhuva Svaha Tat Savitur Vareniyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhur Bhuva Svaha Tat Savitur Vareniyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhur Bhuva Svaha Tat Savitur Vareniyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om. I bow to the infinite light within each of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Reema. Thank you for the opportunity to sing and chant with you. Yeah, that hit my heart. And all of this, I just feel lit up and supported, and I hope all of you do too. I'd like to invite my fellow participants to share where folks can find you in the chat. On the stage chat, you can just put any links And if there's any resources for grief that you'd like to share, you can pop those in the chat as well. And that includes all of you. I know there's so many healers and feelers here. You can pop those in the chat. It was such an honor to be here with all of you. When we come together in community, we have the opportunity, I believe, to digest our grief rather than choke on it. We begin to transmute it collectively together. And so I really deeply, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for coming together to do that together. And Josh, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Erica. Thank you to all the presenters today. It was so beautiful, so special, so unique. This was the first event like this that we've done, and it was just really, really nice to just be with each other and drop in a little bit, even if we can't be together in person. So thank you so much again to Erica for organizing, and to everyone who participated and everyone for attending. And I'm just going to quickly share a couple things if you want to stay connected with the Chacruna community and what we're doing. We have community forum events, which are a little different, a little more intellectual than this event, but they're really wonderful. Everyone is different. And our next one is in 2 weeks, and it's going to be a really great one. It's with Glauber, and it's all about love. So I think in a lot of ways it might connect. And so, yeah, you can check that out. I think we'll post that in the chat. And then we also have our conference coming up in April. It's called Sacred Plants in the Americas 2, and it is a big virtual conference with multiple tracks, and it's going to be here on Hopin in this platform.